Hello and welcome to More Than a Game. My name's Tommie C, and with me this week to talk about the world of football is Jesse and Damo. Damo, how you doing this week?
I'm good, mate. And contrary to the images that you've been seeing on YouTube, I'm not currently in East London. I've got a flat cap on for those who can't see the images on YouTube.
And literally, as we've just hit go live, I just see that Jesse's just dropped out. So hopefully this isn't just going to be an hour of technical difficulties, but we'll see how we go.
How are you going, Tommie? Live from hotel quarantine in Sydney?
Yeah, mate. So those listeners that knew my old recording location, I've returned back to our sunny shores in the last few days. So I'm currently enjoying hotel quarantine in Sydney. No more sweat box. What do we call it? The
control room.
Yeah, I believe it's ground control to Major Tom.
What it does look like is because I've got the window behind me that I've got, and I'm just wearing like this black jumper, and there's no other light at the moment. It looks like I'm just a head, just like a head floating on the screen.
Love that for you.
But boys, it's good to be back, and hopefully now for those listeners, obviously don't know the background. It's always been tricky while I was overseas trying to get a good time to record. It basically meant that I only had 1 hour on one day a week where I could record, and so it meant a little bit tricky. Let's just put it that way. But look, enough about scheduling. Let's dive into some football, shall we? Damo, what was your moment of the week?
My moment of the week was from England. It was Manchester United player Marcus Rashford has actually topped the Sunday Times giving list. He's the youngest person to ever do that at 23 years old. He donated £20 million, which is £4 million more than his personal wealth. Granted, this is not all of his money. It comes from his charity, which was donated, obviously from a lot of people. But I mean, it's an incredible thing that he's done in terms of raising money for food for children in poverty and charities in communities from, he grew up in a tough way, and he's giving back to the people that are growing up like he did. So it's awesome to see that. And I hate him for making me like a Manchester United player.
Yeah, I can see you saying that through gritted teeth that a Manchester United player was your moment of the week.
Yep.
Oh, mate, good stuff though. Jesse, what about you? What was your moment of the week?
Well, how long you got, boys? I've been off the pod for a while, and to the listeners, I mean, I just got a young black Labrador who has completely harpooned my life for the last 4 weeks. So I think Tommie's got better excuses moving across the world, but let's just say a black Labrador can be equally destructive. But
sorry, your partner's been able to help out though. Sorry, your wife's been able to help out though.
Yeah, well, if she'd have never broken shoulder blade, she would be a bit more helpful. Yeah, so it's just been perfect here. Thanks, guys. But I have to say, there's been plenty of good stuff. Joanna's, my partner's club, Sporting, as everyone can tell by the shirt. Her club finally won the league for the first time in 19 years. So absolute scenes over at our place. Got up in the morning to watch that, and it was quite funny because there's no crowd there, but the horns were so loud outside the stadium that it was this really surreal experience where no one was in the stands, but everyone was outside the stadium going absolutely bananas before the final whistle. As far as this week, I mean, I cherry-picked a few things. We're going to talk about them a bit more later. Goodwin's goal against Melbourne Victory was an absolute peach. I thought that was fantastic. We got to the final day of the EPL, which seemed like an absolute marathon, but we got there, and there were some exciting results in the final day, so that was pretty cool. Wellington playing in front of home fans for what seems like an eternity, even though Wollongong was a fantastic home away from home. What's the chicken place across from the stadium there called, Tommie? Across from Wynn Stadium, it's called like Chicken World or something. Yeah, that'd be my home away from home.
This is taking him back a few years, Jesse.
I was just thinking how I'd cope as a Wellington player if I was having to base myself on Wollongong.
This is killing me.
Well, you think of that, Tommie. I was just going to say, just to wrap up with the moments of the week, because obviously there's a long list of them. The champions across the continent, not just sporting, but you had Lille in France, the first time in 10 years. Sporting, obviously, 19 years. We mentioned that. Rangers, 10 years. I guess with an asterisk next to those people who don't believe they existed. Atletico Madrid, 7 years, and Inter Milan, 11 years. So what a time to be alive, boys.
Scenes.
Absolute scenes.
For those playing along at home or that have been to it in Wollongong, it's Chico's. So shame on me for not remembering.
Cheers to Chico's.
I went to Chico's. I went to uni in Wollongong, and I remember I used to go there pretty semi-regularly because a friend of mine lived nearby. But it is amazing. I went there a few years later, and you know how sometimes you'll have something and then you'll go back a few years later and it won't measure up to the memories. This measured up, if not exceeded, the memories that I have. It's that good.
I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah, mate.
I'll take your word on that, Tommie.
It's pretty much just a chicken schnitzel burger with coleslaw. It's not really anything special, but just the schnitzel. Wow,
it's different.
All right, for me, other than the memories of Chico's, my moment of the week was Paddy Kisnorbo and the city celebrations. I think everyone would have seen a lot of the images about City celebrating after the final whistle after they beat Central Coast a couple of days ago. But some of you may not have caught Paddy Kisnorbo getting dunked with the Gatorade, the big Gatorade bottle. And as it turned out, they hadn't screwed the lid on properly. And as a result, it basically meant that he ended up needing a couple of stitches after the lid collected him afterwards, which was just fantastic.
Just to add to his injury woes.
Yeah.
Out for the season.
Poor guy. It's not really a celebration until someone gets hurt, though, really, is it?
That's true.
Alrighty, boys. I did ask our Twitter followers as well for their moments of the week because it really is a big weekend for moments, plenty of moments. Lee Broxton Facts, he said the puncher in the crowd catching the ball on the full, something that he loves to see. That was his favourite thing from an otherwise pretty dull original rivalry matchup. Kazonis, he said it was great that Real Madrid, PSG and Juve didn't win their respective leagues, as Jesse already said. Mikey Mifsud, he said City winning the league in Melbourne. Just wanted to leave that there. And also Shannon, some of you remember, who's been on the pod recently, he had Georgievski winning the league with City after having played. He didn't put this in the tweet, but I looked it up. He's played 24 minutes thus far this season, not including tonight's game against the Raw. So plenty of great moments there as well. But boys, there's been a few things that haven't quite hit so well this week. Damo, what's your own goal?
My own goal this week is it's got a couple of parts to it, and it's a lot to do with Spurs. So
is it like Lego?
That's good from you. The first one was Daniel Levy and the owners of Spurs. Obviously, they had fans back in the stadium for the first time last weekend, and they put the fans in the top of the upper tier of the stadium, charged them £60 for the privilege of being up there, so they could leave the sponsors' banners on the first tier and that they were on the TV, because obviously they're paying for that space. And the second part of the own goal is that Spurs are, according to reports, trying to re-sign Pochettino after he's out of favour for not winning the league in France. So what a whirlwind of a week to be Spurs fans. And I'm sure we'll talk about it later in transfer chat and the whole Kane situation and everything else going on there. But it's not a good time to be a Yid, is it?
I listened to a podcast with a Spurs fan that was on at Damo, and there's an even further twist to what you were saying with the fans. So that part of that £60 package for them to be in that position, they also mentioned the sponsors being prioritized in front of the fans. But he said that he didn't really mind that because he likes having a vantage point. The bit that pissed him off and a lot of the fans was that part of the deal was because it was the final game of the season or the final home game, was that the players were going to come out and I don't know necessarily if they're going to do autographs, but they were going to come out and sort of acknowledge the fans and clap around the stadium, do the traditional lap. And basically the players didn't come out for, I think, about 50 minutes.
Oh.
And so they'd obviously lost. So there was already a shit atmosphere, and there was no communication over the loudspeaker or the PA as to when the players or the coaching staff were to come out. So this resentment just started bubbling more and more and more. And by the time the players came out, it was just like the most toxic atmosphere you can imagine. So like it's just an absolute PR disaster from start to finish.
I don't know if you saw any footage from that kind of lap that you're talking about, but Harry Kane was last left on the field and kind of did half a lap by himself, and he looked like he was brought to tears. It looked like it was very much a goodbye, thank you very much kind of vibe. So
they've all got the shits with him.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd say stay tuned on that.
Oh wow. That charging them a lot of money. I think Spurs weren't the only club to charge a lot of money as well for those that last round. I think Burnley were the only club to not charge fans for one of their returning matches when fans were allowed in, which kind of surprised me. It seemed like a bit of an easy win for, like, you can only allow 10,000 fans in. Like, you're not going to make that much extra money out of it when you can, I guess, give something back to the fans who, a lot of them still paid for their season tickets as well, which, again, it just sort of boggles the mind a little bit. You give a little bit and you probably get a lot of good PR out of it. And like Burnley were the only ones that did it. The only thing I want to add about Spurs, though, was that I think maybe they also were expecting to lose, so that way they wanted to keep the fans as far away as possible so that they could not like throw coins and shit at them as well. Yeah.
They were forward thinking. They're smarter than us.
Playing 4D chess.
Yeah.
All right, Jesse, what about you, mate? What was your own goal this week?
Going over to Serie A, I think it was Napoli falling out in the final day of the top four. I haven't been following the Serie A as closely as I'd like to have. There's just been so much going on in all the other leagues as well. But from all accounts, it was almost akin to Leicester, I think. Just that final day, couldn't get over the final hurdle, and Juve, who have just been absolutely hammered in the press about how incompetent their season's been, have crept in on the final day, by all accounts, and are in the top four and making Champions League.
Andy Korpanitis will be very, very happy at that, I'm sure. But I think for me, the biggest disappointment in Juve finishing fourth is the fact that if they weren't going to make the Champions League, Ronaldo was definitely going to leave. And it was going to be interesting to see where he went. I think he probably stays at Juve now they're in the Champions League, because that's all he wants to do now. So that's the biggest disappointment for me in Napoli kind of crumbling on the final day.
And shout out to some of our listeners who are clearly Peaky Blinders fans. Thomas Shelby. Yes, I think as far as Juve goes, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the off-season with them. That's a completely separate topic, but Napoli will be gutted to miss out. The other thing I was just going to mention, and we'll get into it with Championship chat, was the red card to Bournemouth. Just an absolute tie turner and a complete disaster for that club. So that's a massive own goal for me.
Yeah, that was that red card really sort of turned the tide in the Championship playoff between Bournemouth and Brentford.
Given by none other
than Jared Gillett, yeah. All right. And my own goal very quickly was similar thread to yours, Jesse. It was Leicester losing fourth spot. I think they had over 250 days in the top four this season. And for them to lose the plot pretty much in the final 3 weeks, when I think in the end, even a point, I think would have got them across the line in the end, because Chelsea lost. And so for them to basically just drop their bundle the way that they did was just really disappointing. I mean, it throws up that conundrum for a lot of fans, which is would you prefer to win the FA Cup or finish fourth? And I guess Leicester showed which one they prefer to do. All right, boys. We got a little bit of football news, transfer chat, and the like to go through. First up, we're going to go through the Socceroos squad, which was announced this afternoon, Tuesday afternoon. It's going to be 4 matches between the 4th and the 16th of June, which are all World Cup qualifiers. We play Kuwait, Taiwan, Nepal, and Jordan. Not going to run through the whole squad, but Damo in particular, were there any particular players that jumped out to you that you were really glad that they were in the squad, or you're a little bit sort of puzzled as to why they were in the squad?
In Colby's absence, I'll give a massive shout out to Brad Smith, who's been in massive. He's been in great form I think the last probably 3 or 4 weeks. He scored his first goal for Seattle about just under a month ago, and he scored, I think, 2 or 3 since then. So he's been playing really well, and I thought it was really great to see Ruan Tonjik in the side, who, this time last season was looking down the barrel at the end of his professional career nearly. He was kind of getting thrown around. He was about at his 4th or 5th A-League club. He wasn't really setting the league alight, and this year he's had an off-season he'll never forget, and he's turned into an absolute monster of a defender. And I think by looking at the squad, it to me, it looks like Graham Arter wants to play 3 at the back. We've got a lot of centre-backs there, and we haven't got much width in terms of full-backs. The only real width we've got is Bajic and Grant, who can both play in that kind of midfield full-back hybrid role. So I think that's really exciting to see that. I'm excited to see Riley McGree and Kenny Dougal in the side. And obviously Jamie McLaren up front, he's going to be leading the line. He's in probably the form of his life at the moment. So hopefully he can bang in a few goals for the national team.
Not just McLaren, but Marty Boyle. I think he's probably the other real form player coming into the camp. I think he scored 12 goals or something in the Scottish Premier League this year, which, considering he's not like a traditional number 9, that's pretty incredible as well. I think he was on the losing end of the Scottish Cup final last weekend or the weekend before, which is a little bit disappointing for him, but it still shows that excuse me, that he was thereabouts with his team and given his key role in getting them there. It's only good things, or only good signs for the Socceroos.
McLaren adds a bit of horsepower for sure. Well-oiled machine.
Good for me, Jesse. But yeah, there's I guess be interesting to see more of Karacic, the Australian defender, and just I guess on the topic of Tonjik, it's I remember him seeing him come through at City, and he was, even as a 19-year-old, he was an absolute mountain of a man, and I think it's probably taken him a little while just to even grow into his body as an adult. So it's good to see that he's sort of matured, and he's always been a physical specimen. So now it's just good to see that he's turned into a really solid defender as well.
There's a lot of synergies with what you're describing with the people on this podcast.
So people growing into their bodies.
Just a few massive units still growing into their bodies.
Tommy, there's a couple of guys in the midfield which you've kind of been ranting on a bit, raving about for the last, I'd say, season, at least 2 seasons. Denny Genro and Connor Metcalf. You rate them both very highly. Are you excited to see them in the side?
Yeah, I think it's for both of them. It's a little bit early just yet for them. I'm not really expecting a lot of game time for them. But I guess of the one player who I'm expecting who will play a role in this camp, and that's Riley McGree. I think he's been over in the UK this season with Birmingham City, and it's only been sort of the tail end of the campaign that he's got a lot of minutes. So I think he's a player that needs to step up and take a little bit of responsibility in this camp. And it is a bit of an inexperienced Socceroos squad. There's no Milligan anymore. There's no Jedinak. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. Colby's just said, Colby's of course watching along at home. He's just said Metcalf has really matured, more of a Met cow now, which I think everyone can get around that.
That's very good. Very good. Yes. Tommy, having a look at that midfield, do you think the fact that Graham Arnold's picked Genro, McGree and Metcalf, it's a bit of getting the band together in preparation for the Ollie Roos Olympic campaign, because the three of them are still eligible for the Ollie Roos in the Olympics later this year.
That's a good shout. Yeah, I think I don't really expect, but them spending time together in camp, I think, can only be a good thing. James Holland, he's 32 and he's playing for Lask in Austria. I think they won the title again, so it can only be good things for. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a real senior role in this camp, and we know Arnie loves to play a 4-2-3-1 with a double pivot, so I wouldn't be surprised if James Holland, he's one of the defensive midfielders.
Yeah, and I think that kind of plays into Kenny Dougal getting a lot of time, which I'm excited to see him play. I always thought he was a great player. He came through the Raw Youth Academy, never got offered a first team contract with the Raw, and decided he'd try his hand in, I think it was the third division of the Netherlands at the time where he signed. And he's worked his way all the way up. And I think he's been, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's played at Barnsley this season. And he's had a great year. Or he's somewhere in the Championship and he's had a great season. But he's worked his way up by playing.
It was Blackpool.
He's worked his way up by playing 90 minutes every week in low divisions. He impresses. He goes higher and higher and higher, and he's made his way all the way to the Championship, where he played nearly every game this year.
Actually, he's not in the Championship. He's in League One, and Blackpool are in the playoff final this weekend because they finished
There you go.
I looked it up this afternoon. But look, I don't want to take anything away from him. He's obviously had a good campaign. He's playing well. He's been playing in a successful side, and he's been an important part of that. So, good for Kenny.
He left for Blackpool this year. He was at Barnsley the last 2 years. There you go.
Although Barnsley obviously jumped up into the playoff spots this year, so I don't know. Is that a good thing that he left, or
who knows?
But look, the Socceroos are undefeated so far in this World Cup qualifying campaign from their 4 matches. They're currently 2 points clear of Kuwait and Jordan, so it means those 2 Kuwait and Jordan games are going to be really key in the run home. You'd think that a win and a draw in either of those 2 matches, providing we win the other 2 matches that we play, should be enough. Now, Moy and Rogic, they're probably the big names that are missing from the camp. Apparently, Moy, this will be the first time first opportunity he's got to see his family during the lockdown and the like due to COVID. And Rogic is carrying a bit of an injury, so surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I was going to say, who's surprised by that?
I didn't even need to research that. I just knew, Rogic is injured. But boys, one final thing, and I guess, Jesse, this is where you can join back in, is that obviously this is going to have a massive impact on the A-League finals with pretty much, I think, at least half of the squad is A-League players. Sydney and City and Melbourne City are most affected. Boys, does that mean that this A-League final series is completely wide open from this point on?
I think it definitely has to come into it. I saw a meme. I'm sorry, I can't remember who actually tweeted this, but there was a meme with all these figure skaters falling over, and Adelaide United was the only one still on its feet.
It was the Bradbury.
yeah. I thought that was really good. And that kind of summed it up, to be honest. But yeah, I do think it does to some extent blow it wide open. But at the same time, I mean, it's always open, isn't it? I mean, it's almost like you get the plate and everyone sort of talks about their final position, and then it's like that gets sort of thrown out the window, and then it's finals time. So, yeah, I think it will make a difference for sure.
You've only got to win 3 games in a row to become the A-League champion, I guess, at the end of the day.
I think keep in mind that the Ollie Roos squad will be put together around the same time, and there'll be a few more players from City especially that will be taken off into that camp. So City are only destined to lose more during the finals campaign. So yeah, it's I think that's why winning the Premier's Plate for them was such a big deal on the weekend, because that's really the one that the team deserves and has worked for, and the finals can be a bit of an afterthought with really half their squad.
It's a good point. And it means they're also guaranteed another season of Asian Champions League as well. So that'll be back-to-back campaigns for them, which gives them a little bit of continuity in terms of them building a squad. So, good times, I guess, for City moving forward over the next 2 years. Boys, we'll move on to a little bit of transfer chat now. First up, we've already touched upon it a little bit, so we'll do that first. Kane, Harry Kane has said that he wants to leave Spurs. Where do you guys think he's going to end up, Jesse?
It's got to be City or United, hasn't it?
it feels like a massive game of musical chairs. Like there's rumors that Grealish had pre-signed an agreement with City a couple of months ago, and hence all the dithering with his game time. But if he
and the injury
and the injury inverted commas, but if he signs a contract that is upwards of 70 to 80 million pounds, then how do they fit Kane in? And if they don't take Grealish, does he stay at Villa for another season? And that then sets the wheels in motion for other transfers. So it feels like a massive, there's going to be a lot of standoffs, and it's like, it feels like it's going to be one transfer that sets everything in motion, and who's going to be the first person to flinch? It probably won't be Levy. So it's probably going to be another transfer that sets this in motion. But there's all these other politics at play. Like somebody mentioned that Kane might go to Chelsea, and then it's like, well, no, they won't sell them he won't sell them to a London rival. But then if he gives it to City, you might as well give him the league for the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, it's just so many politics to think about when they sell Kane. And to be honest, if the other clubs in the continent went broke, I'd imagine Levy would prefer to actually sell it to someone outside of England. So,
yeah, I think that's a good point, because I think probably if they were looking, if this situation was happening, say 2 seasons ago, it would have been Real Madrid, Barcelona that were going for Kane. But like you said, Jesse, those continental clubs, they just don't have the cash to pay for big transfers at the moment, and it kind of rules them all out. So it's seemingly that if he leaves, he's going to a Premier League club, but does that include we've seen in the past, you pay a premium for one being an English player, homegrown, and 2 for coming from another Premier League club. But does that even factor anymore? Because these, City and United know that Spurs can't sell him to the continent, so maybe the premium isn't factored in that price anymore.
I guess the other factor in this is that Kane's still got, I think, 3 years left on his contract. So Levy's got all the bargaining power as well. And there's no guarantee that Kane will actually get sold. We could be sitting here in November or October thereabouts, and if Kane's head's not right come the beginning of the campaign, he may not be playing.
And I think one of the biggest telling signs that Spurs will sell him is the fact that they've just launched their 3rd kit this year with Gareth Bale modelling it. So it means if Gareth Bale's staying, it kind of means that they've now freed up the funds to pay him his enormous wages by letting Kane go and getting a big fee for him. So, and he'll probably play as a 9 for Spurs, and he'll probably play brilliantly all year. But I think that for me was kind of the signal that, okay, well, they've kind of settled that Kane's going to go. It's just now a matter of where.
They're pretty quick to put Son on all the imagery as well. So they obviously want to hold on to him. But I heard a Spurs fan the other day was mentioning that, if they sold Son and Kane, as painful as that would be for Spurs, they could do a proper rebuild of that team. And until they do that, they've literally got 2 players that are the team. And when those 2 players don't, do the ruthless finishing that they're renowned for, if they just have a sort of an off day, then Spurs are in massive trouble. So they really have to consider when they're going to do that rebuild. They can't sort of keep papering over the cracks. They're going to have to do it at some stage.
Yeah, I mean, we'll consider what Spurs finished 7th and just made the way to 7th. Harry Kane got the Golden Boot and he got the Playmaker Award, most goals and most assists in the league. Imagine if they didn't have Harry Kane.
Yeah, that's not exactly. It's not a compliment to Spurs that he won those awards.
Exactly,
especially the assists. He's just done it all himself.
Yeah. That'll be interesting.
Boys, one player that we kind of already touched upon a little bit is Barcelona. Barcelona, we've mentioned they're probably not in the running for Kane, but hasn't stopped them from probably going out and signing Sergio Aguero, though, has it? Good signing?
Oh, I don't know. Is he too old? Wasn't Suarez too old, guys?
Oh,
God. Wow. I mean, how times change. I missed him for my moment of the week because there were so many moments. But what a get fucked to Barca that was from Suarez. Yeah, that really. If they go out and get Aguero now, then it just shows you how fickle Barca are.
Yeah,
it's so stupid, and they're probably going to be paying him super money as well, like silly money in terms of wages. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, I think the transfer makes sense in terms of they need a striker. They're playing with Braithwaite up front, and Yeah, exactly. And they let go of Suarez. We all know the circumstances there for peanuts and whether or not whatever the reason was, they let him go, and now they're signing like the poor man's Suarez in Aguero. So
very few triggered listeners.
They're all just convulsing on the ground right now. Boys, in the other big transfer that's been in the pipeline this week, which is I think everyone has predicted was inbound, was Max Burgess to Sydney FC. Now, the Woo have desperately missed Max Burgess this season, and it's been I can't see Max Burgess coming back and still being the same footballer after not having played at all for almost 18 months by the time he actually rocks up at Sydney. Just a good move, you think, for the player and for the club?
I think Max Burgess is, like you said, Tommie, he's done himself no favors. He's 24 years old now, and when you're that age, you need to be playing 90 minutes every week to improve your game. He had a brilliant season. He could have been in this Socceroos squad if he kept playing the way he did last season. This season, he could have been included in this squad today. But the fact that he had his little tantrum and he refused to come back to Melbourne, wanted to stay in Sydney, and he's tried to force his way out. And to be fair to Mark Rudin and Western United have held firm, and they didn't let him go. And they said, okay, well, you can leave at the end of the season, and he'll probably pay the price for that. He won't be the same player. It may take him another year, 18 months to get back to that level, if he ever gets back to that level. So,
and what's more, the short sock industry has taken an absolute nosedive. Jack Grealish was keeping it afloat, then he got injured. So, we need Max Burgess back to get the calf muscles back out there.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, very good. All right, boys, we'll get into some A-League now. So only a few, I guess, key games this week in the A-League. First up was one that we've already covered somewhat already, which was City defeating Central Coast 1-0. Craig Noon's winner meant City finally have an A-League trophy. Yes, they won the FFA Cup before, but everyone was sort of at pains to make the point over the weekend that now they have an A-League trophy, the Premier's Plate. Boys, did you guys actually notice that the Premier's Plate actually looks a bit beat up these days as well?
I didn't know that. Do they use actually the same one every year?
It does seem like that.
I love that. That's actually great. Gives it a bit of character.
Well, I liked it, but it also had this massive scratch along the front, right? Like it was probably about 3 inches long. It looked like, and you hear those stories about like how Liverpool or Juventus or whoever will like drop the trophy or drop the Champions League trophy like off a bus or something. Or I think Sergio Ramos did it as well.
Yeah, he dropped the Copa del Rey.
Yeah, and like they just get a new one, but the A-League has been so skin over the last few years that they've got the same trophy, even though it's just been mashed at like all of these different parties.
It's about sustainability, Tommie. They're just thinking about the environment.
Oh Lord, spare me. But boys, there seemed to be some real nerves during Central Coast's match against City. I know that City, obviously, a lot of fans were pretty keen to make sure that they wrapped up the result this week. And at the time of recording, well, when we started, City was 2-0 down at half time against the Raw. So it could have actually been down to, what is it? I think they play Newcastle this weekend and then victory on the final day. But do you think that those nerves were justified? Would they have gone into tonight's game with a different mentality if they still had the plate to wrap up?
I think if they didn't beat Central Coast on the weekend, they would have won the premiership tonight. It kind of, the premiership hangover is a real thing. They've probably come in the Brisbane game tonight. They've started a few young players. A few players haven't played that many minutes. It's, they're resting a few. But, I think it was inevitable that City were going to win. But I'm really glad it was that they won the Premier's Plate in Melbourne at home in front of their own fans, because it would have been a real disappointment for them to win the league in Redcliffe.
I think it would have been disappointing for Brisbane fans if Brisbane had won the championship at Redcliffe. Boys,
there's no tiki-taka parade that's going to get through that bottleneck out of the stadium.
Boys, Is City winning the Premier's Plate with 3 games to spare about commensurate with their performances this season?
I think one of the things we talked about in the preseason was about could Sydney do it again, and could they show the remarkable consistency they have in other years. Sydney's not only sort of won the league the last couple of years, but just been well out in front. And the only other team that you'd think that would have that hunger was City. And one of the things I thought in the preseason was that City was going to build. I wouldn't say the same as kind of the Liverpool City in the Premier League situation, but kind of similar in the sense that the team that came second had much more motivation to fight this year and go the whole way. So I think you could sort of see that, and it's not a surprise that City's leapfrogged them. So they were close last year. They went right to the end in the final. So I guess it's only a good thing that you've gone a step further this year. And whether or not they can go the whole way in the finals is another question. But as you mentioned earlier, it's a piece of silverware. So that success is already notched up for them now.
I think there's no understating the huge importance of Jamie McLaren. We obviously know he's scored 25 goals this season, but Melbourne City have scored 20 goals more than any other team in the league this year. That's a significant difference.
So even if you take out Jamie McLaren, they're still then on par with sort of like the second best team.
Pretty much. They've scored 55 goals this season, and the next best is Adelaide United with 36.
Yeah, you've got Scotty Pippen back there. I mean, Craig Noon chipping in with all the
yeah. I mean,
all the big goals.
They've just been unstoppable going forward. They've been good defensively in parts. They've had some, poor runs of defensive form, but when they've been good, they've been brilliant. And I think them winning the league with games to spare is justified in terms of how well they've played all year and how dominant they've been, particularly in that middle stretch of the season. I think they went a run of games where they scored like 19 goals in 6 games or something, or 5 games or something ridiculous to not concede one. They were just in untouchable kind of form, and they've continued that, and they've won the league deservedly with time to spare.
Yeah, it probably speaks a little bit to how we underrate the Premier's Plate in the A-League, and I guess in Australian sport a little bit overall. I know that I don't want to start the debate about what's more important, winning the grand final or being the minor premiers or winning the Premier's Plate, but yeah, it's obviously been a great season for Melbourne City. The team that did was sort of the benchmark over the last few years, though, was Sydney, and they played Western Sydney in the Sydney Derby, though. Boys, this one was at the SCG. It was a bit flat, though, for you, or what did you think?
Yeah, unpopular opinion probably, but I've watched a lot of games there for different codes. The rugby league, it's not the same. It's just, I mean, I know the AFL set up well for that ground, but the rugby league certainly doesn't come across as a decent spectacle on the television. At least I don't know what it's like if you're actually there. The old round goal for a square game doesn't really work with the SCG, but people persist with it, and because of all the other stadium issues in Sydney, they've moved so many games to the SCG as well, so that also affects the surface. I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of it for football or rugby league or rugby, so that's just my opinion, but maybe their opinion. I mean, it's a beautiful ground, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think it's suited to the sport.
Yeah, I think the whole stadium issue with Sydney, they don't have a home at the moment, and we know the Wanderers did that for the last few years while Bankwest was getting built, and Sydney are kind of going through that now. They're chopping around. They're going from the north to Kogarah to the SCG to Leichhardt. They're all over the place at the moment. So, like the SCG, it's not conducive to a good atmosphere for football or to watch on TV. But like you said, Jesse, it's a beautiful ground. It's iconic. It's one of Sydney's, glamour stadiums in terms of sport, and that's why they continue to go there. And it's actually very accessible in terms of stadiums in Sydney. So
get them down to Wynn Stadium to Chicos.
Yeah, but yeah, the atmosphere in that for a derby and for the importance of the game that had, I think it just fell so flat for me.
Fair enough. Alrighty, boys, we're not going to talk about the result. We're just going to keep moving, though. Still plenty more to talk about, though. The other big match this weekend was Wellington's homecoming back to the Cake Ton. They had 24,000 there, which I think is gonna go pretty close to making it the biggest match of the season in terms of attendances. After we haven't really seen either of the Melbourne or Sydney derbies hit quite the same heights this year due to COVID restrictions and attendances just being generally down. But Jesse, how much would you have wanted to have been at this game?
Yeah, it just looked like a sensational spectacle. New Zealand's been a little bit different to here in the sense that crowds got in a lot faster. For them, they haven't had the caps that we have once they've been in the clear. So you are seeing bigger attendances just across the board. So I don't know if it's a fair comparison with Australian crowds just yet, even though we are getting, until this week, we're getting up to decent numbers here too. But it is still very impressive, and it's great to see. And it's obviously on the back of just being starved of months and months and months of being able to see the team locally and in the flesh. So Jason Pine, a shout out to him. He's the commentator. He's engaged in a few of the More Than a Game posts on Twitter. He was calling it, and I think he did a great job. And he sort of conveyed the emotion of the fans finally seeing the team for a while, and the abbreviation or the hashtag for this game was "well won," and I think it was well won in the end, 3-0, and it was convincing. And I think the Western United were just kind of overwhelmed with the one team wanted it more. I think you enjoy that, Tommie. They just wanted it more.
Wellington just came home with the wettest of wet sails with that really stiff, strong breeze flowing.
With a real New Zealand reference there. Great at sailing.
120k sou'wester.
This game, it wasn't just the crowd, the size of the crowd for me, but just how loud and how passionate. And you could just tell these people were starved of top level high football for the last 18, 19 months that it's been. And every time Wellington got the ball, they were just on their feet. It was loud. Every time Western United got the ball, you could hear boos ring around the ground. It was just one of those games that you couldn't see anything else happening but Wellington running away with it. And they did in the end. It could have been 4-5, 6-0.
Yeah, the other big thing, or big moment out of this match was Andrew Durante's retirement, and it was sort of it almost could have been an own goal this week about the announcement. It seemed like that it was a little bit reminiscent of remember that Donald Trump press conference, like at that garage. I can't remember the name of the, but it was a bit like that. I think they did this press conference in the car park, and it was massively amateur hour, but it was sort of made up for by the fact that Andrew Durante, I guess, got an opportunity to say goodbye to all of the Wellington fans that were there as well, and there was a few tongue-in-cheek tifos, such as I think there was one saying like Dura, like, we love you but we hope you lose today, and that kind of thing. So it was a really nice day, I think, for him, and I'm not sure if you guys saw his sort of farewell at the end of it. That was a really touching moment as well. Big player for you, Jesse, Andrew Durante?
Yeah, I mean, every time I see Durante, I just think of the Energizer Bunny. He's just the battery doesn't go out. It's so durable, and he's just been a great servant to not only the Phoenix but just to the league. And I think it's great. I think it's also just a great reminder that defenders can play, on and on and on, and go beyond the sort of age. We focus so much on attackers and. Oh no, they're getting into their 30s. They're gonna have to be moved on, sort of thing. But defenders can just keep going and going, and he's sort of testament to that. So it's great to see.
And I think not to forget that he played nearly 70 games in the NSL before the A-League started. So he's definitely had a fair crack at it. Tommie, one last comment on the crowd in Wellington. You're talking about it'll go close to being the biggest crowd of the season. I think there's only one game that might be a bigger crowd, and that's when Wellington play at Eden Park on the weekend. I think it's got a chance of being an even bigger crowd, and that it'll be those two games that are the biggest crowds of this season. So it's pretty exciting. And Eden Park will be absolutely rocking that square ground. It's going to be amazing.
Jesse, which one do you think is, like, will the Eden Park game go bigger, you think?
Yeah, well, it is actually, weirdly enough, Damo, it is a round ground, but it's an amateur round ground in the sense that it's not the right size. Like
Because they try and play cricket there,
they
and
try
it's
to play
like a
cricket,
boundary that's about 40 meters.
it's the kind of cricket boundary that, you and I after a beer could just do a slog sweep and we'd clear the fence. So it's a bit of an embarrassment for cricket, but yeah, it is definitely closer to the action, and so when you fill up Eden Park, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I think you're right, because there's just the population and the density up in Auckland is just another level. So and there's a huge football scene up in Auckland and New Zealand football and everything. So yeah, I think we'll get a huge crowd there too.
Good stuff. Hopefully it translates just as well to TV as it did for the Western United game. Alrighty, boys, on to some Premier League now, though. Alrighty, there was the final round of Premier League was played over the weekend. All 10 games played simultaneously. It was like goal rush on steroids. It's just elite. I love it. Boys, I don't think either of you got up for it though, did you?
Yeah, let's just say it was an absolute embarrassment on my part. I was really tired. I was like, sweet, I'll set my alarm. I'll set my alarm to 12:45. I actually set it to 12:45. So my alarm was set for midday. So I woke up at 5 a.m. and just about fucking lost my shit. And
either that or you just had a massive sleep in until midday.
Oh, well, 5 a.m. is a sleep in with a puppy, I tell you that. So I got up and me and the little black Labrador puppy watched the game. We watched the Liverpool game, but it was kind of similar in the sense that you're watching the game and all the news is coming in. I haven't checked the results on my phone, so it was still dark. It could have been early in the morning as well. So yeah, it was still a great occasion, and then I was able to sort of go back through all the different results and see what happened. So yeah, an amazing final day. It was great to see some drama on the final day.
Yeah, we'll get to the Liverpool result in just a second, but really, I think the main game that everyone had their eye on, which was the one that was really going to be deciding a lot to do with not just fourth place, but third, fifth, and also is down as far as sort of sixth, seventh, eighth, which was Leicester versus Tottenham. And Leicester did take an early lead, but boys, if there was a biggest bottlers award for this season, and maybe previously it might have been Spurs that would have had that, Leicester, they are dead set. They are looking like they're going to be taking over the mantle as the biggest bottlers after taking that lead and then basically throwing it away. And in the end, they ended up losing 4-2. I didn't even realise that they conceded a fourth goal so late on. But yeah, just Leicester just throwing it away in the end, I think. Really disappointing for them. Was he surprised at all that Leicester threw it away on the final day?
No, I'm not. Like I thought when they lost to Newcastle at home, I thought,
here we go again.
Yeah, like I mean, if you think about Tottenham's situation, like I realized just thinking about it before that if Tottenham had beaten Villa and one other team, I can't remember what the other team was, they would have got in. They would have gone into the top four based on the results that we saw. So they also did their best to screw up their own European ambitions, but Leicester just went a step further. And it's your home game on a final day. Meanwhile, Chelsea's gone away to Villa and had an absolute nightmare. And you still find a way to let Chelsea back in the top four. It's just incredible. I wonder, like, if you think about it, I mean, at what point does the news filter through and you sort of say, calm down, lads, like Tottenham's equaled at 2-2 and how do you sort of, they just didn't keep their heads. They were just obsessed with going for the win and completely lost it. I think that the bottle tag would be harsh if this season was just taken in isolation, but you can't take it in isolation because of what happened last year. It was the same old thing. Top of the league around Christmas or in the top four at Christmas and they're all season until the final week. I mean, that's pretty devastating.
I said it early on, but I do think that if they hadn't have won the FA Cup or if they had have only made the FA Cup semi-final, I think they would have been a shoo-in to finish top four. But with winning the Cup, I think they massively took their eye off the prize, and it's all just they've all been a little bit they've taken their eye off the prize sort of in the last week or so. Jesse, you've kind of already mentioned it in passing a little bit, which was Chelsea having just a shocker on the final day as well, away to Villa. How lucky are Chelsea to have scraped through on the final day?
Yeah, just insanely lucky. Like the everything sort of that could have gone wrong went wrong for them, and the crowd got up for Villa, and I mean that was always going to be a really tricky fixture. The thing that was going under the radar, and I say under the radar because all of the focus was on that Leicester game. It's just that Chelsea could have just slid straight out of the top four on the final day. And at one stage with Liverpool up and Leicester up at the same time, it looked like that was going to happen. So, I mean, like, we had George in the group chat sort of saying thanks to Gareth Bale. I mean, absolutely. And some. I mean, essentially Tottenham has bailed them out.
Yeah,
literally.
You got him before me.
Sure. Now and put his face up on the on a poster or something outside Stamford Bridge.
We'll never buy a drink around Stamford Bridge again. He's royalty over there now, I imagine.
And Jesse, you've already sort of mentioned a little bit, but Liverpool, they hosted Crystal Palace, clinical 2-0 win there, 2 goals from Sadio Mane. That saw Liverpool claim third, which is, got to say, a pretty incredible comeback for Liverpool after their horrible form in early 2021. Could you have possibly foreseen this panning out the way that it has?
No. I think a month or so ago, I just thought there's just too much in front of us. You can't sort of predict that Leicester's going to have those sort of nightmare results that they did, and for the other teams to drop points. You can't anticipate that. You just have to assume that they're going to hold their nerve, and they didn't. So to finish third in the season that we had, I'm absolutely wrapped, to be honest. I didn't think that. I think everyone was getting a little bit ahead of themselves after the Alisson header and saying that we were home. I didn't feel like we were home at all. We had Burnley and Palace still to go, and they're absolute banana skins for us.
Massive banana skins.
But to win 3-0 and 2-0 on those last 2 games showed a little bit of the old maturity that they had last season, and I was really impressed by that, because it came at the right time. With the other teams, you saw Chelsea and Leicester lose their heads. We didn't lose our heads, so I'm really pleased to finish like that.
Yeah, and look, Liverpool, obviously everyone knows their bad form and the injuries they had, but I've got a list of players and how many league games they missed this year. So Van Dijk, 33 league games, Gomez, 31, Matip, 28, Keita, 28, Jota, 19, Henderson, 17, Thiago, 14. That's how many games, pretty much all starters, outside of maybe Jota when he wasn't in his when the others were in better form. But, that's half of your starting 11 missed more than half the season. So it's pretty incredible that the Liverpool have finished third. And thanks to a couple of teams not being in the greatest form, but all credit to Liverpool for being able to pull that out.
Well, you've got I guess other teams, they're playing the games that they're playing, and you sort of hope that they slip up, but Liverpool's only had the teams in front of them to play sort of for the last 2-3 months. So I think they've done pretty bloody well to be able to turn it around, and they still have been somewhat inconsistent, but they've still been far more consistent than some of the other teams around them. Boys, the other game that really did have something riding on it was West Ham hosting Southampton. West Ham needed just a point from this one to ensure that they finished in 6th spot, and that was to wrap up Europa League rather than finishing 7th and playing Europa Conference League. West Ham weathered an early storm after to end up getting a pretty straightforward 3-0 win at home against Southampton. Declan Rice rounded off a late win after 2 Pablo Fornal's goals, which, like I said, secured 6th place for West Ham, their best finish since 1999. Boys, I'm sure we'll come back to a lot of these things in our season review pod next weekend. The only other final match that we did need to cover was City, obviously, in Sergio Aguero's farewell. They tonked Everton 5-0. And this, for me, was probably probably the most surprising result of the round for me, because like Everton still had something to play for, and the fact that they didn't really seem to turn up at all against a City team that didn't really have much to play for just completely blew me away. It really shocked me, and I think Everton now they've ended up finishing 10th there. It's just a real season of waste for Everton for me. Boys, what did you think of that final round? Any surprises for the score, or
just like any team, including us, including Liverpool, can go to the Etihad and get demolished 5-0. So I don't think the result itself is too like surprising, like considering the party atmosphere, especially after one goal win and that Aguero's final game. But it also just exposes horribly sort of the lack of fight that Everton has once they go down. I mean, they've actually been pretty decent away from home. Their home form has been the real issue this year. But just still, like, just to collapse like that, even when they've still got something to play for, some of the goals, the defending is just horrendous. I know that they were exposed a couple of times, and there's not much the defenders could really do other than just sort of isolate them. But like there's like footage, I think it's of Godfrey and someone else just getting turned inside out by Jesus and Aguero, and it's just too easy. It's just too easy for the City players. So it actually looked like a bottom of the table team playing a top of the table team, and that's really the most brutal kind of thing you can say about for Everton. They didn't look like they didn't look like a top table team.
Let alone the team that was, I think, at the completion of the 37th round, I think they were in 8th place or 9th place, and I think they dropped down places because I think Leeds won, and there was one other team that won who jumped above them as well. So they actually lost 2 places on the final day, which is just would be really disappointing, I think, for Everton fans. Boys, in terms of the other results, Jesse, sorry, you wanted to say something before we move on?
Well, I was just going to try and play the Uno card where you block and you send it back to the person who asked you the question. I mean, surely you want to say something on West Ham, mate. Here's your moment. You must be absolutely wrapped with your boy Ricey hitting in the final goal to make it 3-0. But how are you feeling, mate? Have you got the if you got your sort of European passports booked? I mean, obviously you can't go anywhere, but
you're locked in that room. You're not going on a European holiday.
I can't even leave Sydney at the moment, let alone bloody Australia. But no, I have jokingly mentioned to my partner that, hey, do you want to go to Marseille or Seville next year? We can go watch West Ham play. No, it's look, it's been after a couple of rough years following West Ham, it's been a lot of fun watching them and watching them play really well. There's been a couple of results recently where in past years I probably would have expected the team to have just folded and lost it, but even in this game against Southampton, like they were absolutely battered in the first 20 minutes. I think Southampton probably should have been up 2-0, but for them to come back and get a couple of goals and can, like I say, weather the storm, it was really good to watch, and it was really, really, really fun to I guess watch the team sort of watch their fight every week. It's been a joy.
Just goes to show, if you do a bit of decent recruitment, you can actually build a decent squad. Some of the Czech signings have proved to be incredibly valuable for West Ham. And Coufal, is it Soufal?
Soufal, yeah.
Soufal has been brilliant for them. So I mean, you've got to be happy with the signings, which is something that we've done this pod for a few years, and the main thing that you've said at the end of the season every time is shit signings. Why did we buy that guy? I can't wait to get rid of him, or he's leaving to China on his own accord. so finally you've got a couple of guys who've come in who want to play for West Ham and have really played for the shirt, and shock horror, you've finished high up the table.
Yeah, it's been like you say. We'll talk about this a little bit more and in the review episode next week. But those 2 Czech guys, the potato salad lovers, Soufal and Souček, they've just been absolute wonders this season. But like I said, more on that next week.
We have some Leeds fans tuning in. Tommie, the other Tommie, a big Leeds fan, he just wanted us to cover a little bit about the party atmosphere for them and their final game. A huge season for Leeds, and sort of slipped under the radar how well they've done. But the fans obviously were very happy to have them for the final day, and they did exactly what everybody kind of expected them to do, and smacked a few goals in and won quite convincingly.
Yeah. So
No comment.
So, friend of the pod, Biggers, he sent me a screen capture. I think it was yesterday, which was all of the achievements that or records that Leeds have broken this year, either internal to the club or in the Premier League for a promoted team. And just like there's about three screens worth of records there. It's been an incredible season. And
quick note on that. They're not the highest finished promoted team in Premier League history. That's Sheffield United.
That's what you call a legitimate conflict of interest.
Did Sheffield United finish above them this season, though? Or
no comment.
Righty, boys. We're going to keep moving along, though. So the other results saw Wolves, who didn't really have much to play for. They lost at home to Man United. Leeds, as we were just discussing, they knocked over already relegated West Brom. Arsenal finished on a high note, beating Brighton 2-0 at home, which meant that they missed out on the opportunity to jump above Spurs. Newcastle amazingly jumped up to 12th after beating Fulham. And Damo, Sheffield United, they finished the season on a high note, knocking over Burnley 1-0 at home on the final
Quick note
day.
on that. I just want to mention that was the first game at Bramall Lane with fans since the league stopped because of COVID. And if any team suffered more from the COVID stop and the no fans in the Premier League, it was Sheffield United. That's a biased opinion, but it is what it is. But I think over 7,500 fans were able to see off Sheffield United with their last game in the Premier League. So it was probably special for those fans at Bramall Lane on the weekend. It would have been a sad, bittersweet kind of moment, but it is what it is. They get the win and say goodbye to the Premier League all in the same day.
Sheffield United will continue playing football next year in the Championship, though. Boys, we'll be doing our annual Premier League review pod next week or in a few weeks' time. So listeners, make sure you keep an eye out for that. But next up, I've actually got a couple of prizes to give away. So before we move on to the EFL Championship playoffs, we've got some MTAG FPL prizes. Give away a couple of prizes today. First up, we've got the May monthly prize. This player has really come home with a very, very wet sail, soaking wet, in fact. Mace Caruana, he takes out the May prize. He also took out the April and January monthly prizes as well. So congratulations, Mace. Already got your PayPal details on file. So, won't need to be sliding into your DMs just this week. But look, with the monthly prizes out of the way, now we can get on to the important ones. That's the overall prize winners. And for those that don't remember back to the beginning of the season, I promise that we will do a couple of prizes. So first all the way down to fourth, they all get a prize. And drum roll. Fourth place, that goes to Aaron Barker's Hokey Pokey. Third prize goes to Pete Steinfort's McGinnadine Zidane, which is a great team name as well. I feel like I'm very happy to be giving some money to him after just having a great team name. Now we get into the really meaty ones here, and Jesse, I know that you've had a really fantastic season with fantasy football this year, but the highest you could place in more than a game was second, though. So are you a little bit disappointed, or you're happy with how your season's panned out?
I mean, mate, to be honest, I thought I was third, but obviously the person in the league that was first was scrubbed out, Lance Armstrong. So I'm happy to sort of go up to the. I'm happy via the anti-doping commission to take second place.
Thanks, Wada.
I just want to thank Wada and my family and everybody that's helped me get here. No, but
there's no substance abuse.
Yeah, I mean, I was always surprised to be getting second there, Tommie. So it's news to me, mate. Party atmosphere here now.
Very good. But that does mean that the winner, he probably already knows that The this year's overall winner is Mace Caruana. So he obviously took out the May and April and January monthly awards. So it was a red hot winner, a red hot favourite for taking out this year's overall prize. So congratulations, Mace. Went right down to the wire. I think he only overtook Jesse. I think it was the second last week. So it did really go right down to the wire. But I did check the this week's results, and I think this week alone he beat you by about 40 points, Jesse. So yeah, in the end, I think he beat you by about 50 points. So it's still pretty close, but you probably wish that they had to stop the count on the second last week.
Man, I can't hate somebody for captaining Mane in the final day. I mean, fair play to the bloke.
Difference maker.
Yeah.
All right. So congratulations, Mace, and all of our prize winners. And thank you, everyone else, for playing. This was completely, I guess, participant generated, the prize pool. So thanks, everyone, for contributing towards that. And we're all able to give out a lot of prizes this year to a lot of different people. So it's been a lot of fun. And I hope everyone has enjoyed playing. Next up, Championship Playoffs. So just a few weeks ago, we confirmed that Norwich and Watford, they're going to be bouncing straight back to the Premier League on first attempt, while Brentford, Barnsley, Bournemouth and Swansea rounded out the playoff places. Now, over the last week, we've had the two semi-final playoffs with Bournemouth. Bournemouth, they lost the plot in a crazy game against Brentford to lose their first leg lead to go down 3-2 on aggregate. That was a bonkers game. I was watching the first 30 minutes of that, and I'm not sure if you guys even caught the highlights, but Bournemouth absolutely shat the bed after being in pole position. I think they were 2-0 up at one point there, and for them to throw that away, I think they would be really, really annoyed. Boys, Brentford will be hoping to go one better after losing last year's Championship playoff final to Fulham in the final day. And while Swansea saw off a dogged resistance from Barnsley to win 2-1 over their two-legged playoff, which was a little bit less eventful than the Bournemouth-Brentford games. That sets up a promotion playoff final between Swansea and Brentford to be played this Saturday. Boys, Swansea haven't played in the Premier League for 3 years after going down in 2018, while Brentford haven't been in the First Division since 1947. Boys, two questions for you. You can answer them, I guess, separately. Who do you want to make it into the Premier League next year, and who do you think will make it in? Jesse, I'll let you go second. Damo, who do you want to make it? Who do you think will make it?
I want Brentford to make it. I love the way Brentford is set up. They're a real. I don't know if you guys or the listeners know a lot about Brentford, but they're owned by the same owner as Midtjylland. They're built by the Moneyball model, I guess you could call it, a very data oriented setup at the club. And I think that I love that part of football, and I love that that's the way that football is going, and they make money. They get results, and I'd love to see what they can do in the Premier League with a bit more income. So I really hope Brentford can go up. They've got a brand new stadium that the fans can flock to, and it's just got fairy tale written all over it. So I really hope they can go up, and I think they'll go up too. I think they'll win it.
Fair enough.
What you're tapping into there, Damo, with the data is expected buzz. Expected Brentford, and
ex Brentford to Premier League.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And maybe this just goes to show that I don't know enough about Brentford this year, because I did follow them a bit more last year. But I want Brentford to go up. My gut is more thinking that Swansea is going to get through, which I don't want to happen, but unfortunately, I feel like they will. So yeah, hopefully my hope is going to override my gut and that Brentford gets through.
This is one of my favorite games of the year, the Championship playoff. It's just, there's not going to be 100,000 people at Wembley this year, but the atmosphere and the feel of the game, I don't think there's anything much like it in English football than the Championship playoff.
There's a real desperation about it, isn't there?
Yeah. It is, but it's never really. Yes, sometimes it's never really like one of those nervous energy cup finals. It's like we're here, we're hitting the ground, we're going for it. This is all or nothing kind of feel, and you get that vibe from the ground, from the players, from everyone. It's real desperation. Yeah,
it's like being in a nightclub in Ibiza.
You're just actually being just glad to be there.
The atmosphere is incredible.
Oh, boys. All right. We'll finish up with the Champions League preview though. So City will be playing Chelsea on Saturday night / Sunday morning. Chelsea come into the game in not the greatest of form. They've lost 3 of their last 4. That includes losing the FA Cup to Leicester. And City, they've lost 2 of their last 4 as well. And one of those was to Chelsea in the league. But they have scored a lot of goals recently though. So they do come into it in even though not great form, they have been scoring a lot of goals. Boys, do you think it's going to be a high-scoring game?
No, I feel this has got midfield battle written all over it.
Just Pep's going to stack the midfield with like 6 players, and then you're going to have Kante just like chasing 4 people and just doing it comfortably for 120 minutes. And
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this goes all the way to penalties. I feel like it's got that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah,
it's
I'm thinking 1-1 goes to pens. Yep.
Ooh, I think it's the kind of game that we probably say this every final, every cup final, whatever, that this game is desperate for an early goal, and if you get an early goal, anything can happen. But yeah, if it's 0-0 for a long time, almost into sort of past the hour mark, then yeah, I think this has got all the hallmarks of being a low-scoring game as well, a real arm wrestle.
It's a real lesser of 2 evils with these teams because I don't like either of them. But I really don't like City, so I'm going for Chelsea because it's not just because I don't want City to win it. It's because there's a bit of monopoly on these teams winning certain cups, and I know that City won the League Cup, but I just don't want anyone to have the satisfaction of saying they did the double. You know, I'd rather or the treble. You know, I'd rather
like
sort of like
treble.
Because like it's like when Chelsea got knocked out of the FA Cup. I mean, imagine if they'd won that and the Champions League, you never hear the end of it. So I just want Chelsea to beat City just to continue the curse for the City, and also just to sort of spoil that kind of like, because otherwise you're going to finish the season and they've won the Premier League, the League Cup, and the Champions League. I mean, it's just I shudder just thinking about that.
I want the Aguero fairy tale. Do you remember the headline on the back pages and front pages of the Manchester papers that said, "I'm not leaving Manchester City until I win the Champions League"? I really want that to come to fruition because there was all those memes about Aguero being 80 years old, still running around on the pitch. But if he wins, and yeah, he may or may not play part. He probably will, especially if it goes to extra time. He'll probably come on and imagine if Aguero scores the winner, and it's kind of written in the stars. We get another Martin Tyler moment, final minutes of the game. You know,
imagine he scores the winning penalty.
Yeah.
You know,
scratch your eyes. You are really watching the most extraordinary scenes ever again.
What I want to see is like the massive U-turn that he does when City don't win, and then he goes, "Oh fuck, I've got to stay now, don't I? I promise that."
It doesn't leave.
Yeah, let's just keep that ironic. I reckon just leave to Barca and just never win it.
He'll come back to City as like an assistant manager and win the Champions League. Told you I wouldn't leave.
Oh wow! Alrighty, boys. Very quickly, I think we haven't really done a prediction there. What's your prediction?
1-1.
Damo? Oh, sorry, Jesse. 1-1.
1-1 goes to pens. Chelsea wins.
Woo. Damo?
City win after extra time or penalties.
Woo. All right, I'm going to say Chelsea will win 1-0 in regular time.
Oh.
And we're not finished there, although it's sort of like the budget European Cup. The Europa League final.
Wait till the Conference League starts.
There's also the Europa League final on Thursday as well. Man United, they play Villarreal in Gdansk in Poland. Man United, Gdansk. Never heard of it?
In the Bunnings Europa League. And we'll talk about the Costco Conference League in a second.
That's very good. Man United surely be red hot favourites for this one against El Submarino Amarillo, but it's still going to be an exciting match for the neutral with Gerard Moreno and Danny Parejo providing plenty for Man United players to think about. Boys, do you see anything other than Man United getting the win here?
I hope so. I hope Villarreal win. I don't want Man United to win. It's just another thing for Man United fans to be talking about, which, when Man United fans talk, it's not much fun to listen.
No, it isn't. Villarreal, go on the Submarines.
Which is it's a strange final because I think Villarreal, they come from this tiny town in Spain. I think they're a town of 50,000 people and their stadium holds 30,000. So they're getting 2/3 of their whole town are coming to these games. I think I'm not sure if they're just out. I think they're from just outside of one of the major cities. So they're obviously getting plenty of overflow from that city. But Man United won this trophy 3 years ago, I think it was, under Mourinho. And so it's not really one that they're going to be bragging about that they've won. So it's kind of Man United, I don't think, will care if they don't win it, but I still think that they will probably win it anyway. It could just be a bit of a bridge too far for Villarreal, and I guess to go out on a limb straight up, I think Man United have really improved this year under Solskjaer, so I wouldn't be surprised if they do take it out. Boys,
Villarreal's going to need the biggest magic trick since they got Cazorla to come out of the box for his for his unveiling.
Oh, I forgot about that. The smoke, the fake smoke. Oh, that was spectacular. All right, boys. Question without notice. Who's going to take out this one then? Damo?
I think Man United will spank them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it'll be 2-0 to Man United in normal time.
Fair enough. It's one of those sort of one with the heart, one with the head. My heart wants Villarreal to win, even on penalties. I think they'd take that, but my head says that Man United will win this pretty comfortably. So going to be very interesting to see how that pans out. And given that I'm in hotel quarantine and can't do anything or go anywhere, I will be waking up not at midday though. I'll make sure I don't wake up at midday for it.
What I will say, guys, is Emery is the king of just an absolute turnaround tactically. I will never forget what with Sevilla halftime, just completely screwing Liverpool in the second half, and just off. I remember distinctly a friend of mine saying to me that he's a really good tactician. Don't underestimate him. And we're up 2-0 or something at halftime, and they score from the kickoff. So he's he's been in the sheds with the team, and he said, this is how we're going to zigzag through Liverpool from the kickoff, and then you're going to be down by only one goal, and it's the rest of the half to get the other goals. And Sevilla steamrolled us in that second half. So that's probably their biggest hope is their manager. He might better pull something out.
Are you saying this could be an Emery masterclass?
I hope so.
Oh, very good. Damo, did you give your prediction already?
Yeah, Man United to win comfortably.
All right, cool. All right, well, that pretty much wraps things up then for this week. Like we said, there's still plenty to be happening this week with Championship Playoff, Europa League, Champions League, and obviously more A-League on the horizon as well. It's been great having you all with us to talk football once again, but until next week, enjoy the football.
Good evening.